So this will be the last video for week 1, and we're going to talk about acute and chronic responses to exercise. So we've got 4 objectives today, 2 of which are definitions. So we're still easing into XViz here. So very little new material, lots of review, but here we go. So stress and adaptation. So what is stress? Well, kind of simply put, stress, at least as we're talking about with physiology, is something that gets us out of or challenges homeostasis. Exercise is a stress. Okay. Something to think about is that as we go through this class, you could think about exercise. You could argue that a single bout of exercise is relatively dangerous because it's something that's getting us out of homeostasis. Okay. But chronic exercise is something that's quite good for you. All right. So kind of wrap your mind around that. And the reason that chronic exercise is good is because we undergo adaptations. So adaptations are something that happens due to repeated stress. So for example, the more I run and undergo aerobic training, the more likely, or what likely will happen is that my resting heart rate will be decreased. If I lift weights, I'm going to increase muscle mass, that sort of thing. Okay, so chronic exposure to stress results in adaptation. So then we've got acute versus chronic. So acute is something that's temporary. So a single 5-mile run, something that I'm going to do maybe today, although it's 11 billion degrees outside with a 6,000% humidity. Whereas chronic is something that's long-term, it's repeated. So if I run 5 miles every day for several months, okay, this is what I'm experiencing as I've been training with my daughter who's getting ready to go run cross-country at PFW. Okay, we've run something like 450 miles over the last 12 weeks. It's a lot. All right, but there have been benefits that have come from that. And it's important to know your body reacts differently to each of these types of exposures. So acute, a single bout, one time, you experience it, then it goes away. Chronic is basically several acute bouts over time. Okay, so like I said, acute is a single bout of exercise. Once you stop exercising, the response goes away. So when I exercise, what happens to heart rate? It goes up. But when I stop exercising, what happens to heart rate? It goes back down. All right. And this is one of those things that your Apple Watch or your, I know that Apple Watch does it. It says, hey, it took you 5 minutes or whatever to get your heart rate back down to normal once you stopped exercising. Then we've got chronic stress. And so this is repeated bouts. Okay. The response goes away not when you stop exercising, but when you stop training. Sometimes this is referred to as detraining. Okay, and so the example that we mentioned just a little while ago is that resting heart rate might decrease after chronic exposure to aerobic exercise. Now, as we go throughout the semester, most of what we're going to talk about deals with both the acute and the chronic effects of exercise on the physiological systems. We're going to focus mostly on cardiovascular, respiratory. We'll talk a little bit about endocrine, not so much get real into the long term. Muscular, nervous, and then we'll get into some of the effects of environments and stuff like that, among other things. All right, so congrats on surviving week 1.